The first time she saw him, he didn't look like a man who could change her life. He looked like a man who had already lost everything. He sat there in a sleek wheelchair, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, staring at the world as if it had quietly forgotten him. People walked past him without a glance, without a pause, without even noticing the weight in his eyes. And yet, in that single moment, something about him stirred a feeling inside her chest she couldn't explain. If you believe that a single act of kindness can change everything, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like this, they remind us that humanity still exists. Every morning before sunrise, she stood at the same corner, arranging her wooden crate with care as if it were something far more valuable than it looked. The bottles of fresh orange juice glowed golden in the early light, each one squeezed by her own hands the night before. Her fingers were often sore, her back aching, but she never complained. She couldn't afford to. Her name was Alina, and life had not been kind to her. After her father passed away and her mother fell ill, the responsibility of survival fell squarely on her shoulders. No education, no connections, no safety net, just a crate, a dream, and the quiet determination to make it through another day. She had learned quickly that people didn't notice girls like her. To them, she was just part of the street, a passing shadow, a background detail in the chaos of the city. Some would buy her juice without looking at her face. Others would haggle over a few coins as if her struggle was negotiable, but she still smiled, because somewhere deep inside she believed that one day someone would see her. That day came unexpectedly. It was late afternoon when the sun softened and painted the buildings in warm shades of gold. Business had been slow. She had sold only half her bottles, and worry was beginning to settle in her chest. Her mother needed medicine. Rent was due in 2 days. And hope, for the first time in a long while, felt fragile. That's when she noticed him. The man in the wheelchair sat near the entrance of a grand building, dressed sharply but completely still. Not checking his phone, not talking to anyone, just existing in silence. People passed by him just as they passed by her, but there was something different about his stillness. It wasn't peace. It was emptiness. Alina hesitated. Approaching someone like him felt strange, out of place. He clearly belonged to a world far removed from hers. A world of polished floors, glass doors, and quiet luxury, but something in her heart pushed her forward. She picked up a bottle of orange juice, wiped it gently with a cloth, and walked toward him. As she got closer, her confidence faded. Her steps slowed. What was she even doing? Why would someone like him buy from someone like her? She almost turned back. But then he looked at her, and in that moment, everything changed. His eyes met hers, and for the first time in what felt like forever, someone truly saw her. Not the crate, not the juice, her. She swallowed her fear and extended the bottle toward him. Her voice was soft, almost trembling, as she offered him the drink. Not with desperation, not with force, but with simple sincerity. It wasn't just a sale. It was an offering. For a moment, he didn't respond. He just looked at the bottle, then at her, then back at the bottle again. His expression was unreadable, as if he was trying to understand something far deeper than what was happening on the surface. Then, slowly, he reached out. His hand brushed against hers as he took the bottle, and she felt a strange warmth travel through her fingers. He didn't immediately drink it. Instead, he held it, turning it slightly as the light caught the vibrant orange color inside. There was silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, like something unspoken was hanging in the air. He finally took a sip. And then, unexpectedly, something changed in his face. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The emptiness that had clouded his expression softened. His eyes flickered with something alive, something real. Man, something real. Alina didn't understand why, but her heart began to race. He finished the bottle slowly, thoughtfully, as if savoring more than just the taste. When he was done, he looked at her again, but this time there was something different in his gaze. Recognition, not of who she was, but of what she had done. Without saying much, he reached into his pocket and handed her money, far more than the juice was worth. She immediately tried to refuse, shaking her head and gesturing that it was too much. But he insisted gently, but firmly. Reluctantly, she accepted. She thanked him quietly and turned to leave, assuming that would be the end of it. Just another passing moment in a long, exhausting day. But it wasn't. because the next day he was there again, waiting. She noticed him from across the street, sitting in the same spot, wearing the same quiet expression. Her heart skipped a beat, unsure why his presence mattered so much to her now. She approached him again, this time with less hesitation, and again she offered him a bottle. And again he accepted. Days turned into a pattern, a silent routine. She would arrive with her crate and he would be there, waiting, not for anyone else, not for anything else. For her. They never exchanged many words. They didn't need to. Something deeper was forming between them. Something built on quiet understanding and shared loneliness. But Elena's life outside those moments remained harsh. Her mother's condition worsened. The medicine became more expensive. Some days, she barely sold enough to cover basic needs. There were nights she went to bed hungry, telling herself it didn't matter as long as her mother had eaten. She never told him any of this. She didn't want pity. She didn't want charity. What she valued most was the way he looked at her, as if she mattered, as if she wasn't invisible. One evening after a particularly difficult day, she almost didn't go to her usual spot. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her body, and despair whispered that it wouldn't make a difference. But she went anyway, and there he was, waiting. She approached him, but this time something in her eyes gave her away. The quiet strength she always carried had cracks in it. Pain seeped through. He noticed, and for the first time he spoke more than a few words. His voice was calm, gentle, but firm. He asked her a simple question, one that no one had ever truly asked her before. If she was okay. That question broke something inside her. Not because she was weak, but because she had been strong for too long. The tears came before she could stop them. She turned away, embarrassed, trying to hide her vulnerability. But he didn't look away. He waited, patiently. And somehow, that patience gave her the courage to tell him everything. Not in detail, not dramatically, but honestly, about her mother, about the struggle, about the fear of losing everything. When she finished, she expected sympathy, but what he did next was something she never saw coming. He smiled, not a polite smile, not a distant one, a real one. And then, quietly, he told her that her life was about to change. She didn't believe him. How could she? Promises were easy, reality was not. But the next morning proved her wrong. When she arrived at her usual spot, everything was different. A small stand had been set up where she used to place her crate. A proper stand. Clean, sturdy, with a sign that read her name. Bottles neatly arranged, a shade to protect her from the sun. She stood there frozen, confused, overwhelmed, and then she saw him. This time, he wasn't alone. People surrounded him, not random passersby, but individuals who clearly respected him. Employees, assistants, people who moved with purpose around him. That's when she realized he wasn't just a man in a wheelchair. He was someone powerful. Someone who had the ability to change lives, and he had chosen to change hers. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists, and let us know in the comments what part is moving you the most, because this is where everything begins to change. He had been watching her for weeks, not just as a customer, but as someone who saw her strength, her resilience, her quiet dignity. The orange juice had reminded him of something he thought he had lost forever, a taste of sincerity, of effort, of life. And he decided that someone like her deserved more than survival. She deserved a chance. He arranged everything, the stand, the supplies, even connections that allowed her to expand her small business into something sustainable, not charity, opportunity. Elena stood there, tears streaming down her face, unable to fully grasp what was happening. Her life, once defined by struggle, was shifting before her eyes, and it all started with a single bottle of orange juice. Before this story comes to an end, I have a special request for you. Our comment to kindness changes everything if you believe that even the smallest act can transform a life, because in Elena's story, it did. Months later, her stand had grown into a small shop. Her mother received the treatment she needed. And for the first time in years, Elena allowed herself to dream beyond survival. As for the man in the wheelchair, he continued to visit, not as a stranger, not as a benefactor, but as someone who had found something he didn't know he was missing. Purpose, and perhaps in a quiet, unspoken way, hope. If this story touched your heart even a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the world doesn't change through grand gestures. Sometimes it changes with something as simple as offering a drink to someone who needed more than just refreshment. The transformation didn't happen overnight, even though that first moment made it feel like magic. In truth, what followed was not just a miracle, but a journey. A slow, emotional unfolding of two broken worlds finding strength in each other. In the weeks after the stand appeared, Alina felt like she was living someone else's life. Every morning, instead of arranging bottles on a rough wooden crate on the pavement, she now stepped behind a clean, polished counter. Her oranges were fresher, her tools better, her presentation brighter. Customers who had once ignored her now stopped, not just because of the stand, but because of her. Because she smiled differently now. Not the forced smile she once wore to survive, but a softer one, still humble, still grateful, but touched with something new. Hope? Yet inside her, a quiet fear remained. What if this disappeared? What if this kindness was temporary? What if one day she woke up and everything returned to how it was before? These thoughts haunted her, especially at night when the noise of the city faded and reality had room to creep back in. She had learned the hard way that life could change in an instant, but not always for the better. And so, instead of relaxing into her new life, she worked even harder. She woke up earlier, she sourced better fruits, she experimented with flavors, adding hints of mint, ginger, and honey. She treated every customer as if they were the reason she had been given this chance, because in her heart she believed something very simple. If she didn't prove she deserved this, she might lose it. Meanwhile, the man who had changed everything, Ethan, continued to visit, just as he had before. But now, people noticed him differently. Before, he had been invisible. Now, he was recognized, respected, followed. Alina began to see glimpses of who he truly was, the way people spoke to him with careful attention, the way decisions seemed to revolve around his words, the way his presence carried quiet authority. But despite all of that, when he came to her stand, he was still the same man who had once sat alone in silence, still calm, still observant, still searching for something. Their connection deepened, though still without dramatic conversations or grand confessions. It was in the small things, the way he lingered a little longer each day, the way she began preparing his juice before he even arrived, the way their eyes met and held just a second longer than before. But beneath that growing bond, there were truths neither of them had fully faced. For Alina, it was the fear of not belonging in his world. For Ethan, it was the weight of a past he hadn't shared. One evening, as the sky dimmed into soft shades of purple and gold, something shifted. Ethan didn't leave after finishing his drink. Instead, he stayed. And for the first time, he opened up. Not all at once, not dramatically, but enough. He spoke about how his life had once been fast, powerful, and filled with ambition. How success had come easily, but meaning had not. How an accident, one that left him in a wheelchair, had taken more than just his ability to walk. It had taken his purpose. He explained how people had changed after that. Some disappeared. Others stayed out of obligation. The world that once moved around him suddenly moved without him. And slowly, he had stopped trying to keep up. Alina listened in silence, her heart tightening with every word. Not because she pitied him, but because she understood. Pain didn't always look the same, but loneliness felt universal. She realized that just as she had been invisible to the world, he had been invisible in a different way, seen, but not understood. That night, for the first time, their connection felt complete. Not just kindness, not just gratitude, but something deeper. Two people from completely different worlds meeting in the same quiet place of human struggle. But life, as it always does, tested that connection. A few months later, as Alina's small shop began to grow into something even bigger, an opportunity came her way. A local investor offered to expand her business into multiple locations. It was everything she had dreamed of, but there was a condition. She would have to relocate. Far from the street where everything began. Far from Ethan. The decision tore her apart. On one hand, this was the future she had worked for. Stability, growth, a chance to ensure her mother never suffered again. On the other hand, it meant leaving behind the person who had given her that chance in the first place. For days, she avoided telling him. She smiled as usual, served his juice as usual, pretended everything was the same. But it wasn't, and he knew it. Finally, one evening, she told him. Her voice trembled as she explained the offer, her fear, her confusion. She expected him to tell her what to do, to guide her just as he had before. But instead, he did something unexpected. He encouraged her to go, not because he wanted her to leave, but because he believed she deserved more than staying in one place out of fear. That moment broke her heart in a way she hadn't anticipated, because it showed her something undeniable. He cared about her, enough to let her go. The day she left was quiet. No grand goodbye, no dramatic scene. Just one last bottle of orange juice placed gently in his hand, and one last look, filled with everything they didn't say. Months passed. Alina's business flourished. Her name became known. Her brand grew. She achieved everything she had once only dreamed of. But something was missing. Success, she realized, didn't feel complete without meaning, without connection, without him. Back in the city, Ethan's life had also changed, but not in the way people expected. Though he continued his work, his routines, his responsibilities, something had shifted. The silence had returned. The silence had returned. But this time it felt heavier, because now he knew what it felt like to not be alone, and losing that was harder than never having it at all. Then one day, something unexpected happened. Alina came back, not for business, not for opportunity, but for him. She returned to the same street where it all began, standing in the exact spot where she once held her wooden crate. The city looked the same, but she wasn't. She had grown, changed, but her heart had brought her back. When Ethan saw her again, something unspoken passed between them. Relief, gratitude, and something deeper that had quietly grown all along. She didn't come back to start over. She came back to continue, because some things are more important than success. Some connections are worth choosing again and again. If this part of the story touched your heart, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Stories like this remind us that success means nothing without the people who make it meaningful. And before we close, here's a special request. Comment "I believe in second chances" if you feel that life always gives us another opportunity to choose what truly matters. Because in the end, Alina didn't just build a business. Ethan didn't just find purpose. They found something far more powerful. What? Each other. And sometimes the most unthinkable thing isn't what someone does for you. It's what they make you feel, seen, valued, and finally